Hello everyone, welcome back to The Green Man, and in today's video I'm going to do part 2 of my coverage of the Silmarillion, and this is kind of going to be covering chapters 9 through to 16. Last weekend I did chapters 1 to 8. This weekend I'm going to be doing 9 through to 16, from the Flight of the Noldor till the chapter of Maeglin. And I'd say from the off that I really enjoyed this part of the Silmarillion that I've read. I think it sort of gets more into the characters than the first sort of 8 chapters I read. In the first 8 chapters, of course, found out a few cool little tidbits that sort of link up a bit with, if you're, a Lord of the Rings fan. Things like I found out the origins of Galadriel, the Balrogs, and also a bit of kind of how Sauron sort of got himself known as well. And that was interesting as a sort of, reading this about this really early age, first age, if you will, of Middle Earth, I think. And so from the sort of almost creation part of this story, we move on to where we start to see a bit more in the way of almost family politics, particularly with the elves, with the Noldor, the Sindar and the Teleri. This seems to be a real theme as we get more into the Silmarillion. And of course, at the point I think I finished last time, Morgoth had stolen the Silmarils, the jewels which were created by Fëanor, the son of Finwë. And this elf, he is stubborn, he is minded, and he wants to get those gems back, and he wants to also, take on Morgoth almost at any cost. So we see Fëanor leading his brothers, and they actually attack the Teleri, so their own kind, a different elvish race, but they attack them, they steal their ships, and they carry on their journey chasing after Morgoth, I think, or going after Morgoth, in an attempt to reclaim these Silmarils. And Fëanor is just so determined. He even, as we get through this particular chapter, I think we discover that he even betrays his own brother, Fingolfin. And Fingolfin is left to lead his host of people, across the Helcaraxi, this dreaded, icy, slightly formidable territory that they have to cross to get back to their own lands, I think. Of course, if I say anything here that seems incorrect or you think is incorrect, feel free to put in the comments. Absolutely welcome any corrections to my recounting of this latest part of the Silmarillion, which I've read. So I really liked as well that we start to see things like betrayals coming into the story. It certainly gives a feel that if something like this, some of these stories were in, say, the Amazon TV series, hint hint Amazon, they could be really, really good. And I think that there's this real potential with some of these to be really quite interesting and exciting if they were dramatized or put into a TV series. So we're introduced a bit more. We're actually introduced to men, humans, come into Middle Earth, into the Middle Earth frame, and they mix a bit with the elves. Seemingly, this is where we actually find that we discover Elrond, who you will remember from Lord of the Rings. He is in fact half elf, half man, if I'm right, a hybrid almost. He's mixed elf with man, and I thought that was something I didn't actually know, and I felt like I definitely should have known that. Okay, being something of a Lord of the Rings fan, and I will humbly confess the fact I didn't know that. So tear me down, shoot me down in flames. I had absolutely no idea about that. I also kind of, and I think, I quite enjoyed that one of the next chapters, I think it was chapter 13. So we discover that Fëanor, in spite of all his efforts, he dies at the hands of this Balrog, I think the Lord of the Balrogs, Gothmog. In spite of his sons and him trying to fight to the death, he dies of his wounds. His wounds are mortal, so he dies. And that's in spite of his eldest son and his other sons trying to sort of help him in his battle against Morgoth and these Balrogs. Maedhros, his eldest son, is actually captured by Morgoth, and this is where I think there's a sort of interesting kind of family part of this story, and an interesting plot development. Now, because Maedhros was friends with the son of Fingon, because there was a bit of a friendship there. When Fingon learns that Maedhros is in trouble, that he's been captured by Morgoth, Fingon comes to his rescue. So in spite of the betrayal of, Fingolfin by Feanor, in spite of that betrayal, Fingon still, he got on well with, this son of Feanor, and he sees past. It's almost like he sees past that rivalry of their fathers. He just sees past that. He's like, no, I want to do this. I want to try and rescue Maedhros from the clutches of Morgoth. Of course, he discovers Maedhros is hung up on this rock face, on this cliffside almost, with by his wrist in a steel band. So it's this awful trap which has been created, obviously, by Morgoth, and it forces Fingon to use an eagle to save Maedhros, if I'm right. And I thought this was a really, another really good sort of mini story within the story of the Noldor and these elves, and like a tale almost of heroism from this little friendship that Maedhros had seemingly with Fingon. I really liked that, and it was kind of an interesting development, and just shows that even family feuds can be resolved by maybe other family members. I liked that. I thought that was good. And so kind of got into the later chapters. I mean, chapter 14 was quite sort of dense because it was going into geographical descriptions of Beleriand and its various realms. So that was kind of a less, sort of, for me, a less exciting part, but probably a necessary part for Tolkien to kind of make sure he's set out his geographies of Middle-earth. But it's chapter 15 and 16 that I came on to that I also really enjoyed, and I also thought this is golden TV material if ever they choose, this early phase in Middle-earth to portray. And I really liked this whole Turgon storyline where he discovers Gondolin, or he discovers this veil, this hidden veil, which he makes into this city called Gondolin. And a number of the Noldor and the elves relocate there. Of course, Turgon is the brother of Fingon and the son of Fingolfin, just to note that. Now, the sister of Turgon gets a bit fed up, I think. I can't remember the exact reasons, but she leaves Gondolin, and there we see her actually find this. I think he's Sindar or Teleri, an elf called Yule, E-O with like an umlaut above it, L. And they get married, and they have a child called Maegling. Now, the complicating factor here is, of course, Il is not Noldor. He is Teleri. So this makes an interesting future engagement when this family, the sister of Turgon, Aredel Alriniel, I think I want to say, she returns with Il and their son Maegling, and meets with Turgon. Now, because of the history, I think partly, and the sort of territorial nature of these elves, there's immediately a disagreement between Il and Turgon. Turgon, of course, feels he's entitled to the land. He's claimed this Gondolin in the city he's almost, created. But as a Teleri, this feels like, or Il feels it's his land. It's not, he shouldn't be having to subscribe to the laws of Turgon. So because of his pride, he actually really challenges Turgon. Turgon gets, pretty upset. And there's this immediate, there's like a bit of a fight. And in that fight, I think the sister, Aredel, she runs to protect let's get this right. She runs to protect Maeghlin from a dart. In the process, she dies, which leaves just which leaves Earl. Essentially, he things don't finish well for him. Turgon takes him to the top of the walls of Gondolin, and he gets thrown off the walls, and he is killed as well. So Maeghlin, poor old Maeghlin, is left without parents. However, Maeghlin, being seemingly a bit of an opportunist and seeking a bit of power, I think, ends up, forging a bit of an alliance with Turgon. So in spite of the death of his parents, which both were really horrible deaths, he is still going to get into league with Turgon. So an interesting finish there. Yeah, I really did like these stories in the second part of Silmarillion that I read. Well, it wasn't strictly the second part, but chapters 9 through to 16. And as I say, I think in these chapters there was real TV potential if ever Amazon tried to adapt this part of Middle-earth history. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time for the next part of the Silmarillion series. Take care.